Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast,
where we talk about animal control, shelters, and animal welfare, and the people doing the work.
With your hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
And sometimes Ashley Bishop.
And Daniel Ettinger, helping people help animals. Welcome back to another episode of Keep It Humane, the podcast brought to you by the Cat 2 Challenge. So yeah, the Cat 2 Challenge. What is the Cat 2 Challenge? Well, check it out. Keep It Humane /Cat 2. It's a lot of fun. I just hand people stickers now and say, Google the image, just so they can read about it. It's kind of my business card. And then also
You should make it your business card, dude.
I should make it my business card. Also, a certified animal control professional, a new awesome e-learning platform where you can get certified by using technology. It's 2026. You can do it on your phone. It's self-paced. It's fun, easy, almost done. Well, I wouldn't say almost done. Module 2 is kicking my ass, like building it. And I'll say that's a good thing for those that are going to take the course, just because it's so... The dogfighting and the cockfight, I've been working on those two courses specifically probably for the last 2 weeks, just getting all the info. Yeah, there's so much information, dude. And getting it in there, and it feels so real, like building it the way that I'm building it. I'm really excited to get that launched soon. So you can check that out too at keepithumane.com. Also, it's just me and Texas Bishop here today. Ashley, Wisconsin Bishop is, she's hard at work creating. I think she's creating content now. She's a content creator on Instagram. You can find her at Ashley. I actually don't know what her handle is anymore. I think it's just Ashley Bishop, which is spelled a little differently than your Ashley Bishop. But no, we know she's busy working at the shelter, getting things done, and that's some hard work. At least she texted back this morning. That was nice of her.
Yeah, sometimes we don't hear from her for days because homegirl's busy. She's got her twins and then everything else going on. So
she's got a lot going on. And then we're gonna have an amazing, like one of just in as we set this up, we really, the turnaround was super quick. Literally, you reached out like last week, and our guest that we'll introduce here in a second is going to have a great story and some of the things that animal control officers do deal with, unfortunately. And so it'll be really interesting to get this directly from the person that was like mainly involved in all this stuff going down. So stay tuned for that. We'll introduce that story here in a second. But before we do, I gotta complain. So my dog loves, I can't see if he can see me, but he loves the ocean. And if I say that word too loud, he'll run over here right now expecting me to put him in the car and take him. And I think he's not in this room, so I'm safe. And he was fine, like running full speed up and down, no issues. And then a few hours later that night, he was just completely not weight bearing on his right rear leg, like not at all, nothing. I was like, this is horrible. So it was later in the day. I was like, let's just see, like, if he wakes up and he's still not weight bearing, we'll just go to my vet. So I call my vet, and Bishop, I don't know about your vet, but like if you call with like one of those kind of emergencies, don't they have like one of those like kind of floating appointments where they're like, we can get you in and like do x-rays, or is that like,
I don't know, man. Things are weird in this area since I have a vet school down like in our area, in our town, since they have the teaching hospital here. It's like none of the vets here locally really do any after hours emergency. My personal vet, he's freaking amazing. So he does open on Saturdays. So he's open like 8 to 5 on Saturdays. But yeah, there's like real no emergency clinic here other than the teaching hospital. And they are absolutely outrageous in price for being a teaching.
Yeah.
Like for a teaching hospital, you're talking about thousands of dollars for something that probably should only cost $500.
Insane.
It is. It's insane.
Well, I was kind of disappointed with my regular vet because I called and it just felt like there was no compassion for my dog. I was like, hey, he's, not weight bearing. And they were like, well, we could see you maybe like next week sometime. And I'm like, you don't have any like just slots open? You can't like be a standby? Like, sorry, you're going to have to like go somewhere. I was like, don't say that twice. I'm going to go somewhere else. So I went to I'm not going to say the name, but I walked in. It's a place where you walk in and it has a very open concept. And it you have like this little waiting room that just gave it, the whole process gave used car dealership vibes. And I mean that from like the way the waiting room is, and I'm not to say like the people weren't compassionate because they're nice. Everybody was nice, like everybody was good. But remember, they're working for a program that has an overhead, and that overhead is to make money, like to offset that overhead, right? To put money in pockets of investors and owners and all that stuff. And so they needed to do X-rays, or they no, they rightfully so wanted to do X-rays, and they gave him some sort of like shot, some sort of like fentanyl shot or you would know it because that's like up your alley for like sedation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was. Would they give method something, or is it
It's been a
fentanyl?
hot minute since I've been in the clinic
Clinic.
like that, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, they gave him that, and then they were like, "Well, we're still gonna have to like further sedate to do X-rays." So the X-rays and sedation quote was $765. Yeah,
It's crazy.
just for that. And then the three medications that they wanted to prescribe were 45 each, so that's 90, what, 135. And then the fee just for the exam was 200. And this is what I mean, like they were nice, but this is where the used car salesman feel came in, and I was like, "Oh man, that's pretty like I mean, my dog's he's worth the money. Like that's not an issue, but it was pretty like it just sticker shock, like holy crap, just to get it, just to diagnose. And then I'm like researching if this is the ACL, then that's up to 10 grand in my area, right? I'm like, holy shit, like all this is just overwhelming. And she was like, you know what, let me go talk to the doctor and see what we can do. And that was the used car sales moment that I had. I was like, wow, we're gonna haggle on price just to get my dog seen. So anyway, they came back, blah blah blah. They didn't really do much better, and then they gave me this. This was really nice of them. They had like sheets of other doctors in the area that weren't urgent care, and I called one, and they were really great. They got us in within like 20 minutes, did everything for half the cost, and then he was like, "Yeah, there's no ACL damage whatsoever. Like I don't see it on the X-rays. I'm not feeling it in the exam." And he's been good. Mooney's been good. He's still going to be on house arrest, not house arrest, but like house rest. That's better. He's not a criminal. For probably, I'll probably do another 2 weeks or so just to be safe. I don't, that was really random and weird, but it's tough out there. We talk about access to care all the time, and that one really struck me.
I agree. Yeah, we've had to push back some appointments because yeah, things are getting expensive, you know. I love my vet. I love him so much. He is just amazing. He's the type of vet that I need because working in the industry, sometimes I just need to be slapped in the face.
Mhm.
I can do it every day with any other animal, but my own, I don't poke my own kids, my own dogs. I don't do none of that. So I love him to death, and I understand he has to make a living, but man, things are just getting crazy, you know, because on this side, I understand what things cost and whatnot. It's just, it's insane. It is a sticker shock, and
Mhm.
man, you know, $2 rabies vaccine in some clinics can be up to like $30, and I'm like, bro,
Yeah, it's
it's just it's insane.
it is absolutely insane. And I think as we continue, I mean, we can kind of table this, but I just we this is something we could do episodes upon episodes on, and I just wanted to share like my uh what's the word? Like I was just disheartened
Your
by it.
take, yeah, your
Yeah.
take on it. It's
I,
just, yeah,
I was like $1,100 just to see what's wrong with my dog. Like, and then you wonder why people don't go to the vet. You wonder why animal control, has to go out to these neglect calls. And it's not like people want to neglect their animal; they just can't afford the treatment. So,
yeah. And then just devil's advocate too. It's just like the industry hasn't caught up with the people that are working for it either. You know, vet techs aren't getting paid jack shit.
yeah,
It's just, you know, it's a whirlwind of things. You know, things are more expensive. We want to pay our techs, you know, more. They do a whole lot. And we all know, shouts out to all the vet techs in the world. They practically run clinics. You know, without them, the vets, you know, are really nothing in some clinics in some instances. So, you know, it's just it's a catch 22, I feel, honestly.
it is. It is. Well, let's jump into this article and this story that we're going to share and discuss here in a second. I just want to say, like, if you're in animal control, this is really important for you to pay attention to because this could happen
Hmm.
in your own backyard. And I'm saddened by the news and excited to talk talk about it here with our guests. So this is from DetroitNews.com. The director of Southeast Michigan Animal Control Department has resigned after county commissioners approved a rewrite of animal control ordinance that she publicly opposed for weeks. St. Clair County Animal Control Director Melissa Miller submitted her resignation to Administrator Controller Thomas Hall during the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners Judiciary Public Safety Committee meeting on June 4, 2026, shortly after commissioners voted 7-0 to approve the ordinance 2613. In her resignation letter, a copy which she provided to the Times-Herald, Miller said the ordinance fundamentally undermines the mission, responsibilities, and public safety role of animal control and leaves her unable to continue to serve in the position. I cannot, in good conscience, remain a part of it, Miller wrote. The vote followed weeks of public debate over the proposed ordinance, which shifts animal cruelty and neglect investigations to law enforcement agencies while leaving animal control responsibilities for shelter operations, licensing, dangerous dog complaints, and other civil enforcement matters. The proposal stemmed from a legal opinion by counsel Gary Fletcher, who argued portions of the county's existing ordinance exceeded authority granted under Michigan law. Miller had been one of the ordinance's most vocal critics. During public comment Thursday, Miller told commissioners she had reviewed dozens of animal control ordinances across Michigan and believed the proposal would make St. Clair County an outlier by limiting animal control's authority. If this ordinance is passed, I'm prepared to tender my resignation tonight to leave with that commitment intact, Miller told commissioners. The ordinance was initially expected to receive final action May 21st, but the commissioners voted to postpone consideration after citing ongoing amendments, late revisions, and requests for additional public review. During Thursday's discussion, Commissioner Carrie Ainge asked Fletcher to clarify how animal welfare complaints would be handled under the new ordinance. Fletcher said animal control would continue to conduct welfare checks, assisting owners struggling to care for animals, and working with residents on corrective action plans. He said the primary change was the investigations likely to result in criminal charges would be handled by law enforcement agencies with animal control available to assist. I think you do a great job. You really do, Fletcher said of the department. This was never meant to take away their ability to do their job, ever. Before the vote, Fletcher also requested a final amendment clarifying that the county's administrator controller, rather than the Board of Commissioners, would appoint the animal control director. Commissioner Dave Rushing amended his motion to include the change, and Commissioner Joy Torello, how would you say that? Torello. Joy Torello supported the motion. The ordinance was approved unanimously. In her resignation letter, Miller argued the ordinance limits animal control's authority, transfers hundreds of animal welfare calls to law enforcement agencies, and creates potential liability for the county. Protecting animals and supporting public safety is not a side function of animal control. It is the function, Miller wrote. Miller's resignation is effective immediately. Wow.
That last sentence right there, protecting animals and supporting public safety is not a side function of animal control. It is the function. Kudos to you, Mel, for that, because geez, this stirs up something in my being that just drives me nuts, because we all know when it falls outside of our purview, things just don't get done because they are not priority. And that's why we exist, to make them priority. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Melissa Miller. Can you introduce yourself and everything, like the experience you have, and then we can kind of get into this.
Thank you. I am someone who has been absolutely an animal advocate and professional for 20 years. I started in sheltering in 2006 as a volunteer, walking dogs, became a certified professional dog trainer and a certified behavior consultant for canines through the CCPDT. I was a large-scale field responder and member of the animal response team for the Humane Society of the United States, now known as Humane World for Animals, for 10 years total. I was brought into Detroit in 2015 to oversee humane reform after a previous director of that department had a 98% euthanasia rate for almost a decade. Wow. And along with that came a number of high profile lawsuits about Fourth Amendment violations and illegal search and seizure of animals. So I actually was part of the 7-person team that rewrote the Detroit City Ordinance to make sure that it not only reflected state law, as well as make sure that it had those civil rights protections involved. After Detroit, went and played in some wildfires and large scale cruelty and rescue response for HSUS for a few more years for a palate cleanser, and went back to municipal animal control with St. Clair County. I have been in the position for almost 6 years. It would have been my 6th anniversary in September. That this was a very hard decision to make.
And people don't realize, like, it looks like if you read the article or hear the story, that you just made a kind of a knee-jerk reaction to something that clearly you shared with us, some of the ongoing conversations that you had, and there was a lot of thought that went into it. What do you feel was, for you, I would say, that deciding factor? Like, where did it, you were just like, I can't in good conscience stay in this department?
I think for me, it's twofold. One, the change that all calls that could result in criminal charges had to be investigated by sworn law enforcement. And anyone in animal control knows that every single call we get could result in animal charges. If someone calls because their next door neighbor's dog is outside in the sun with no shelter or water, that right there could result. We don't know till we go. Sometimes we go and they have a heavy tie out or a chain. There's no water, there's no shade. Other times we go and they have this perfect little battery operated water fountain and a fan, and everything's absolutely fine. But until we go, we don't know. So the language in there that all calls that could result in criminal charges shall be investigated by sworn law enforcement was a big factor to me, because it effectively prohibited us from being able to do the welfare, community outreach, information and resource provisions that we pride ourselves on in our county. And the other part is my work ethic. And anyone who's worked with me, worked alongside me, or has had conversations with me knows that I will move heaven and earth to make things okay and make things work. And I simply was not going to put more effort and the work ethic and the experience that I have to undermine our profession, because I'm sure I could have made it work. I'm sure I could have worked with MAAs, with the 9 different individual municipalities with our county. I'm sure I could have worked on some sort of task force with the sheriff's department, who quite honestly is not very collaborative with animal control or my biggest fan. And I'm sure I could have made it work, but I refuse to use my skills and the immense amount of knowledge that I've gotten from experts all over the country, all over the world, globally, to undermine our profession. I just couldn't do that.
And I think that's kind of where, it just bugs me so much, and again, I always speak, I'm such an outlier. I love municipality work. But I hit the jackpot in my city, not only with my chain of command all the way up to our city manager, but also working alongside our PD. I mean, they allow us to do what we need to do. And then when we need to go criminal, they will help us along the way on that end. But they allow us to do our jobs, and we give everything to them on a silver platter, and they love working with us because they really just have to go in, talk to the people, and then boom, bam, done. They're given everything that they possibly need. Because they have other things to do, they have a whole other set of jobs to do. And that's what we're there for, is to help them support. So for you to have to kind of take a step backwards and then have them, civil servants do something that they probably, and I don't speak for all of them, but they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the compassion, nor do they know what they're looking for. It just makes it worse for the animals in the community at the end of the day. And it's frustrating that we continue to see this everywhere in the United States, where we're taking a step backwards and continuing to see, well, you're just the dog catcher, you're just the dog pound, stay in your lane.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that was most frustrating to me in the writing of this ordinance was the lack of all commissioners except Commissioner Angie having absolutely no interest in learning what we do. None of them asked me any questions. None of them came to our shelter. None of them asked to do a ride along with our animal control officers. Commissioner Angie, I will give her the credit in saying that she spent what was originally supposed to be about a 45-minute conversation. She spent 3 hours in my office going over incident action plans, multi-agency response, NIMS-based model of how we integrate with one of the police departments amazingly, and also going over a few of our high-profile cases. We do the same thing you do, Ashley, which is we send the most solid easy peasy slam dunk cases over to our sheriff's department for referral for charges, so that all they need to do is read the report. If they feel like they need to interview other people, they can do that. I look more at our role in St. Clair County as we are the evidence techs. We're the CSI people. When something is off, when we've been working with a family for a couple months and things got better, then they got worse, and now they're non-responsive, and we know the condition of the animals in there, we have that backlog, which becomes a report. But it's not that we're doing quote unquote investigating in the same way that the commissioners and corporate counsel Fletcher chose to interpret our actions. But again, without spending any time experiencing that. One of the more difficult parts too was that our prosecutor, Michael Wendling, kept referring to things that happened 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago before I was ever the director, where he felt warrants were written incorrectly. And the reality is we cannot be an affiant on a warrant. And so those arguments were completely null and void, as we can't be affiants, we can't submit for charges. We have to have that cooperation of either local PD or the county sheriff's department, depending on what municipality or jurisdiction the case was in.
That's
largely this
that's
stemmed
somewhat
from
common, right? And
oh yeah.
Now, I'm maybe you were getting into it, and I apologize there. What was the why? Like, where did this come from all of a sudden?
The why largely came from two commissioners who are absolutely opposed to anything having to do with livestock. In the last 6 years, we've had 5 cases total that have involved any sort of livestock animal, one that involved 5, one that involved 85, that was a farm animal rescue sanctuary that was defrauding the citizens and not taking care of the animals. And the other was a situation where we responded originally to a call for a dog who was in distress outside in the sun after a 3-day, I forget what they call them now, but the heat dome. And the dog was in distress. I got on scene, and there were multiple animals in heat stroke dying and dead. And the dog in question itself, there were 2 dogs, was on the verge of heat stroke himself, not producing saliva, respiratory rate 3 times normal, capillary refill time over 4 seconds. And muscle tremors throughout his body. I watched a rabbit die in front of me while talking to the defendant, and there was a crate of bunnies sitting in the driveway in full sun and had been there for 3 days.
Jeez.
None of the animals had food. None of the animals had water. If they did, it was not potable. It was black, gray, or greasy. There were 8 goats in a 5x5 enclosure that had no water, and in the process of getting the owner surrender to be able to take the heat sickness dog to the vet, we saw 3 baby goats that were lateral in the ground with purple gums. And the unfortunate thing is that what had been an owner surrender, where I just kept going to the defendant in that case saying, all right, can you just surrender these guys so we can get them help, turned into a 3-ring circus over the summer. And two of our commissioners actually said during council meetings that they were going to have ex parte communications with the judge, and that they wanted to have communication with the prosecutor. One of our commissioners very strongly stood against that and said, absolutely, we're not writing a letter on behalf of a defendant that we don't even know the case. The next case this March, I was actually off on MFLMA. My interim director did an amazing job with a case where she went on scene for a welfare call. This was supposed to be 4 animals in the house that were not being taken care of well, one of which was reported to be a chicken in a Rubbermaid tub that had a lid closed on it. She was oxygen deprived and was open mouth breathing when they opened it. But what the defendants soon to be ex-husband showed was over 100 dead chickens and ducks in the backyard at various states of decomposition. This certainly was not HPAI. This was not something that suddenly happened overnight because they froze. This was months of decomp. Those animals were in enclosures with living animals who had no food, so much feces they could not get into their coops or have any shelter. They were chain link enclosures, so there was no windbreak, which in Michigan, there's very few protections with livestock. It can be topography, it can be a ravine. You don't actually have to have a 3-sided shelter or anything like that. But in this case, there was absolutely no windbreak. Every single goat, chicken, goose, and duck from that case that was examined by a veterinarian was marked as unsaleable. So that would be a BCS1. They had no marketable meat on them. Their keels were extremely exposed. One of the goats in our care did pass away within the first eight days. The body was sent to Michigan State University for a full necropsy, where they determined that the root cause of the animal's death was starvation and coccidiosis that had spread to the animal's lungs. Wow. So the commissioners in both of these cases felt that our, quote, overreach was reaching into Michigan's Right to Farm Act, and that we should not have our hands or eyes on any animal that was not a dog or cat. And so the ordinance limits animal control to specifically dogs or cats. It does not include any other species, like the difference between someone raising bunnies or rabbits for, stew bunnies in the backyard as for meat, versus the bunny in the little girl's bedroom that's a pet. There's no protections for any other companion animal species, including horses, that most often are seen as companion animals, even though they are classified as livestock.
I thought it was interesting. One of the things that stood out to me with some of the things that you shared with us was a quote that animal control started out as a dog and cat operation, and it seems to have grown way beyond such an operation. And it seemed like almost like a uneducated comment. It literally says animal control in the sentence, and then was a dog and cat operation. And it frustrates me beyond, what would you say there? Frustrates me beyond belief, I think is what the quote is, that people with degrees and certifications, and however you want to define them, can just be so just like not connected.
Ignorant.
Yes, ignorant would be a great way to say it.
I say it for you. Ignorant. It just again, some of the stuff that you send us, like just reading it, you can obviously tell they have no idea what's going on. What do you mean your county's becoming an owner of upwards to 100 chickens? Yeah, that's what happens when you go in for search and seizure. That's what happens. You become the owner of these animals. Like, and what? Like, what? Like, it drives me nuts that, those that govern what we do on a daily basis. And I feel like we see this a lot more in the sheriff's department than you see on the lower levels of government, where it's just like as soon as you touch livestock, and I thought Texas was the only place like this, because I see a lot of what you're talking about down here, Melissa. Like we see a lot of that, like, oh, this good old boy here or there, yeah, that horse, you can see all of its bones, but it's fine. It got seen by a veterinarian once, but he knows so and so and so and so. Luckily, we don't have that in our county, but it happens everywhere in Texas. And it's amazing how we're still in an age where livestock can still be treated like absolute dirt and they have no protections.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think in Council Fletcher's opinion, where he said that, what was the animal going to do with ownership? My response was, well, anytime an animal is surrendered to animal control, we then retain ownership. That is what happens. We have disposition of that animal. There was argument about the cost that these cases have, and particularly in both of the cases that I mentioned, the one with the heat stroke animals and the one with the many deceased animals and the starving animals, we had placement partners throughout the state that were willing to take these animals as soon as 4 or 5 days after the initial seizure. We just had to follow the state rules for palorum testing and biosecurity and HPAI and those kind of things. So in quite a few of those cases, those placement partners actually had quarantine areas and quarantine pens. And in both of those cases, unfortunately, we had goats that had either CL or CAE that in one of those cases, unfortunately, the mama goat of the 3 little ones from the heat stroke case did have to be euthanized because she became incredibly symptomatic and her quality of life was abysmal. But the important thing to remember is in both of these cases, these were owner surrenders as part of the case that then chose to write and claim to rescind. And property law does not let you do that. I can't just give somebody a chair on Facebook Marketplace for free and then call them back the next day and say, never mind, I want it back. That's not how property law works. And we know that animals are property. It was very troubling to me to see people who are attorneys, which Mr. Fletcher and 2 commissioners are attorneys, not ask anyone from the state animal law part of the bar section to not engage with any of, attorneys for animals. I understand being in a very rural county that, ADLF and any of the Animal Legal Defense Fund or the larger nonprofits, the national nonprofits, are not going to be someone they're going to reach out to because they feel that they're against farming. But the right to farm does not supersede MCL 75050, which has to do with inadequate care, torture, maim, kill of animals. 75050 does make provisions for regular and customary farming and hunting practices. So Right to Farm Act does not supersede criminal proceedings against animals that were desperately ill, that were not receiving adequate care in any sort of way, to the point that they were emaciated, or in the other case that they were down and dying. And we lost a number of them from the heat stroke case, unfortunately, because they were so dehydrated. 8 of the bunnies could not recuperate. 25 of the chicks had cysts that would that treating them would make them non-farmable at that point, but they were so overcrowded that their legs were so deformed, that the vet testified that if they had gained any weight, those chicks' legs would have buckled on beneath them, and they even if we had gotten them healthy, they wouldn't have survived. Their legs would have broken. So this is incredibly heinous. This isn't even meat production. This is not farm fiber, food, or labor. This is straight neglect to the point of cruelty. And St. Clair County commissioners have obviously voted that they're okay with that by prohibiting animal control from doing anything resulting to livestock, which in a semi-rural county, this becomes a problem because there's very few properties that only have dogs or cats, unless you're looking in the more suburban, urban sprawl areas. Because you go to a you go to a call about somebody who may not have been home for a few days, and they have chickens and a potbelly pig and a dog and a cat. So the minute livestock is there, this ordinance prohibited animal control to responding to anything but the dog.
Did you get any support from, I think, Michigan Association of Animal Control Officers or NACA? Did any of them, did you reach out for any?
Yes, I did. And MACO, the Michigan Association of Animal Control Officers, also wrote a statement that
Okay.
they were strongly opposed to this wording.
Sure.
There are a few other counties within our state that do operate this way, but there's no counties that have allowed further permissions for animal control and then chosen to go backwards to the dog law of 1919 and claim that animal control's only statutory obligation is the dog law of 1919.
Be a dog warden. Yeah. Well, when you get an email that says work as a team and stay in your lane, like already there, Jesus Christ, you already know what you're trying to deal with on that end. And it's so disheartening that in this day and age, we're still having to fight this hard for a profession because, as soon as we're gone, it's just, I don't know. It's so damn frustrating, Melissa. And I'm so sorry for you and your staff. It makes me so angry. Where we've come so far and we're still in this stage of our profession where nobody knows what we're doing, but yet they're still making decisions for what we are doing. And then they take all of what we were doing away. And at the end of the day, the only thing that suffers is the community and the animals.
I will say of the 500 or more welfare calls that we get a year, less than 10 of them usually end up resulting in criminal charges. Most of it is being a little bit of a firmer hand to say, hey, this isn't okay, but how do we help you? A $35 bag of food is way more cost effective than the $420 it takes to make this dog adoptable, if it's even temperamentally correct for adoptability.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if it's a lightweight tie out, if it's, one situation that happened during the only 6 weeks that this ordinance was debated, was a situation with 13 dogs in a camper, and the camper moving from the Walmart to a park and ride to another park and ride to a rest stop. And at no point did the sheriffs let us know that there were 8 puppies inside, and the puppies, to the average person who doesn't know a lot, might have seemed chunky puppies, but the reality was they were emaciated with parasitic load. By the time we actually got involved to try to connect them with community mental health resources, adult protective services, and housing vouchers, and the other community resources that we always have on speed dial, one of those puppies had passed away from starvation. We were able to get 8 puppies. And the mom surrendered to us. It took 2.5 hours right before the council meeting where they voted to delay for 2 weeks. One of my animal control officers and I were spending 2.5 hours getting those puppies stabilized with sub-Q fluids, and slowly adding some food to them so they didn't die of any sort of refeeding, get them their fluids, get them some nutrition on board. And immediately after that vote, I went back to the shelter to check on them. And that would be my asshole cat that just knocked over something.
We love cats. They're supposed to do that. That's their job.
Yeah. But the fact that nobody had contacted us regarding the welfare of the animals that are, in 80+ degree heat in Michigan, living in a camper. We cross that animal human intersection every day. And not only are we helping the animals, but we're helping people, we're helping families, We're helping, you go to a house where the dog doesn't have straw, but the kids are wearing their winter coats in the house because they don't have heat. That's a bigger problem. And it's our job, I feel, as animal control officers, that if the neighbors care enough about the dog that's outside in the cold, that it's our job to connect the humans to the resources that they need, and we can help with the animal aspect.
We say that all the time. One thing I want to go back to early when you were talking about it earlier was some of our listeners may have, when hearing the article or reading the article, have only seen it from the perspective of, well, that's how our agency operates. Like we don't fully file the charges. And you brought that up. You said that the case will get packaged and then essentially sent over to law enforcement. And that's very common in our industry. What's changed here is it looks like you're essentially supposed to stop whatever you're doing and say, hey, we need a police officer here to further investigate something that I was out here for, whether it was returning a dog, that one of your officers picked up that had a microchip, and then you get to the home and you see that the home is not, well for the animal to be in. And so that's the biggest, what sounds like the biggest piece is essentially you're not supposed to do any sort of investigating.
Correct. It is literally dog licenses, the shelter, dog bite investigations. Oddly, the ordinance only applies to dog human bites, not dog bites. There is a provision in there that speaks of dangerous dog, but that means serious permanent damage. So if the other dog's owner says, no, we just did first aid, then that ends the investigation right there. So it's literally dog bite investigation, stray dogs, and licensing.
Which it's so funny to me. So a dog bite investigation is just as complex as an animal cruelty investigation. I think the only difference might be, how it results in penalty. But it can be just as complex as doing a cruelty investigation. There's a lot of different things that go into it. So, I mean, it's a bunder. See, I can't talk today, guys. I tell you what, this is get more than 4 hours of sleep. That's all I got to tell you. It's a bummer that it happened this way. But I do commend you for standing firm on your pride, like what you believe in, your morals. So I guess the question is, what's next for you?
Well, right now I'm taking a little bit of time to rest and recover. This was a very stressful 3 months of these cases, but I do look forward to doing some consulting, some assistance where needed. I know that there's a number of animal control officers who have my email, and a number have reached out when they have big cases, and I love to continue to help support people within our industry on, orderly removal and good evidence management, on how to respond when you have a tiny little agency and you come across something huge. Helping people prepare those plans. It's become very apparent, especially in Michigan. We had a dam in a very populated area almost burst and almost have to do a spillover in Sheboygan earlier this spring, and it became very obvious to me how few places are in compliance with the Pets Act of 2007, and they forget that animals do have to be part of your evacuation plan and your disaster response plan. So it is my hope to be able to build a consulting in regards specifically to large scale with small agencies and animals in disaster.
I mean, we don't just have to figure it out when we have to remove like 230 mice and rats and 27 venomous snakes and 20 ball pythons, 2 cats, and a sugar glider.
Exactly.
Well, I will say this. One of our favorite things to do on this show is to put your name into AI and see what it gives back. And I mean, your resume speaks for itself, and I'm going to share that here in a second. But just know that you've done a lot in this profession, and I think people will see that, especially whatever you choose to do moving forward. And so I'll just say that from ChatGPT. She's a well-known animal welfare professional who has held several leadership roles in municipal animal services. Some highlights of her career: director of St. Clair County Animal Control in Michigan, former director of Detroit Animal Care and Control, appointed in 2015 during a period of significant organizational change, certified canine behavior consultant, served as a senior responder for the Humane Society of the United States, now Humane World for Animals, disaster response operations for several years, active in national animal control and sheltering discussions through organizations such as National Animal Care and Control Association. Melissa is generally known within the animal control and municipal sheltering profession for her work in animal control operations, shelter leadership, canine behavior and public safety, disaster response, municipal animal services policy, and organization development. So that alone kind of just speaks for itself in that
Mhm.
aspect. And I think wherever you land, I mean, you'll be in a better place and do it in a way that is in line with what your morals are and what kind of what you want to see progress. I think it's tough when we're put in situations where we don't have control, though we feel like we should. They should listen to they should listen to the people that they hire to do a specific job. That should be kind of the baseline, but there's other agendas, and I can't speak for the whole situation, but I'm grateful that you came on to talk about it, and sorry that you had to go through all that.
For sure.
Thank you. If I can say two things. One, I would like to say that everyone who is at St. Clair County Animal Control is ultimate animal professionals. Our two animal control officers have the same values as I do. They have the same perspective of helping our community. Our animal care technicians are incredibly well trained on cross-contamination, first aid, trauma. We were able to rescue an animal from a house fire and get him the first aid and care that otherwise he would not have survived. We have helped with animals that have come out of the icy river, and even though they were in thermocline, we're able to bring them back. And I can't say enough about the team that is still there. Those of you in Michigan, they still definitely need your support. This is a very difficult time for them with the transition, with leadership that does not have any animal welfare or animal control experience. So if you can support them through donations to the Emergency Animal Medical Fund or animal anything for our kitten shower or find or foster program to keep kittens out of the shelter until they are 8 weeks and they're at 2 months, 2 pounds, so they can just get spayed, neutered, and put on the floor after they've already had 2 or 3 vaccines. That's incredibly important. The other is, if you're an animal control professional, please stay on top of what your board of commissioners or city council is looking at doing. A lot of times we think of our jobs as we don't want to be involved in the politics. It's become very apparent to me in the last 2 weeks that there had been discussions about this going back for quite a while, with how quickly the sheriff's department was able to post job positions and promotions as soon as this ordinance passed. So that doesn't happen overnight. Those of us in government know it takes quite a few months to be able to do that. So please, as much as we like to say, I don't like to be part of the politics, at least know your commissioners' names, your council members' names, and periodically attend those, especially if something animal related or human health related is on there, because our responsibilities to public health is incredible too. So thank you so much.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yeah. What you're going through is a difficult time, and we're happy to help however we can on this podcast, or any sorts of like words of encouragement, or just ways to help you know that you're doing a great job, and you made a hard decision, which is it's tough. Like, no one wants to ever be in that situation, but standing on your morals is really important, and I think people need to celebrate that for you, and I know wherever you go, you'll land on your feet. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you so much. And thank
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Is there
Yeah,
any?
no.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Bishop.
No. Yeah, I'm just glad to have you on, and thank you for coming on and speaking, because you never know, there's other individuals who are probably going through this. And
Mm.
I have to second on what you said, Melissa. I know, I tell my staff all the time, I'm the one that gets paid to deal with the politics because that's what I do. I'm the director of our facility and our unit. But still, it's important to pay attention because you never know what's going on. Pay attention to what's going on in your community because you never know. Things could change very quickly, and you want to make sure that you're in the forefront of that so that you can lend your expertise, whether it goes your way or not. You know that you were there to fight for what you know is right.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, we do really appreciate you. Is there any final words, anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Um, I think outside of that is just remember our job again is right there at that human animal intersection. And the more that we can keep healthy, wanted animals in their homes, the less stressed our shelter system is going to be. So if you have the opportunity to engage with the Landlords Association to talk about pet friendly housing and the reason why, our pet renters actually have longer tenancy and more frequently pay their rent on time and actually do outside of the horror stories take very good care of their properties. When you can show them that sort of data, when you have the opportunity to engage with different aspects of the human health, whether that's community mental health, adult or children protective services, if that is homeless shelters, domestic violence shelters, and working with them to see if there's a way that we can keep pets with their people while they're trying to get to safety. All of that matters, and I know that means we're taking on an even bigger role than we were in the past. But the more we can keep healthy, wanted animals in their homes, the less animals are going to be in our shelters.
Absolutely.
Amen.
We love that. Well, thanks again for, kind of last minute coming on and sharing this whole situation with our listeners, and just, keep pushing forward, being that voice for those animals. I think at the end of the day, that's what really counts. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and reaching out so soon.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And as we love to say here on the show, let's continue to help people
Help animals.
Keep it
and
humane.
keep it humane. Let's go.
Woo, let's go.